بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك سميع مجيب الدعاء. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع وقلب لا يخشع ونفس لا تشبع ودعاء لا يسمع. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. جزاكم الله خير again for joining us. This is our part 2. This is part 2 of our two-part series that we covered part 1 about 2 weeks ago, where we had Sister Noha Alshugairi joining us from California. And I hope you enjoyed as much I enjoyed myself. We discussed the topic is 10 strategies of parenting based on Quran and the Sunnah, and we enjoyed it so much that we finished only 5. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah made it easy that He gave us another opportunity, gave us the life and gave us the internet and gave us the time. So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome again Sister Noha joining us from California. Jazakillahu khair, may Allah reward you. And I have to tell you, it was taken very well, alhamdulillah. We got a lot of positive feedback. You can check our social media. We even made it as the 5 points she shared with us, and she will, inshallah, review it for all of us. We made it easy, like small posters for easy reading and learning. So welcome. So it's a pleasure to have you and see you again.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Haifaa. I'm very glad to be back here with you. I love the spirit of conversation.
Yes.
I love the back and forth. You and I are, sharing the ideas. So barakallah fiki.
Allah yarik fiki.
So we just want to list all the 5 we mentioned last time. This is
I think it's a good idea just to refresh our memories.
Okay, so the first point we mentioned last time was for us parents to actually utilize the beautiful strategy of making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we talked last time, we mentioned the 4 du'as in the Quran that are written in the Quran. Allah gave them to us, beautiful du'as that we can make for our children. So we're not going to repeat them today. Just find them and begin actually.
I ever memorized it by now.
Yeah. The next one was to begin with yourself. And remember, our whole focus in this series is about how do we train our children to be able to be resilient, to be able to deal with the difficulties in life. Because life, as we said last time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. That's what He told us. He did not tell us that He created us so we can just be having pleasures and we can just be happy all the time. Like struggles and tribulations and suffering is part of Sunnatullah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life. And so how are you modeling to your children how to deal with these difficulties? Because you are the first influencer. Like people nowadays talk about social influencers, and they get paid a lot of money, right? A lot of money. But you are actually the first and the most important influencer for your children. So what are you doing? What messages are you sending to your children about how you're dealing with life? And the third point we mentioned last time was focusing on connecting your children with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messenger. And we also specifically mentioned teaching your children from an appropriate age, of course, how to make dua and salat al-istikhara, the prayer of istikhara. For me personally, Salat al-Istikhara has been a refuge in many times in my life when I would be uncertain and I don't know what I need and what is best, because we really are, as humans, our knowledge and our wisdom is limited. So what a relief it is to kind of like leave it to Allah. Like you make, so this doesn't mean you're going to be passive. You actually think about the situation. You analyze the situation. You come up with your options, and then you present these options to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your istikhara. And then you see what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is open, what door is He going to open for you. So teaching your children this beautiful prayer is one of the beautiful ways of connecting our children with Allah in a loving way. And the fourth point we mentioned was about beginning to teach children about the belief in qada wa qadar, because unfortunately I notice in many of our young Muslim, young adults, I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about young adults, Muslim young adults, they do not have a very full understanding of what this means, and they don't apply it in their life. And so if you personally, as a viewer, you have questions about this belief in qada wa qadar, then I am inviting you to really go out and read about it, understand it, ask questions, seek people you trust. Because again, this pillar of Iman, qada wa qadar, is again one of the most important pieces in our foundation that helps us to deal with the uncertainties and the difficulties of life. And we need to begin to teach this to children from an early age. And the last point we mentioned last time was, what life messages are you sending your children? Because every event in life is connected to a life message. So those were the 5 from last time.
So we have dua, you are the example.
Yes.
Right?
Qudwa, yes. Indeed.
And then
connecting with the love of Allah, 3.
Yeah.
And then qada wa qadar, 4.
4.
And then 5 is life messages.
What are you learning and what are you teaching from the life messages Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send us?
Yeah, because children pick up so many messages from their parents, even non-verbal messages. And these actually, the non-verbal messages sometimes are actually more powerful than the verbal.
I agree with you. Absolutely. It's like if you, let's say, if you cook something and then turn to be very good, do I say, oh, I did it? Or I say, Allah made it easy?
Yes, yes.
That's the message I'm giving to my children, that it is not my power, it's not my hawl, it's Allah. Then he learns that Allah brings and Allah takes also.
Yes.
Allah, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Alhamdulillah. So let's go to number 6, Bismillah.
Number 6, Bismillah. So number 6 is routines. In this age of technology, and we have all these lovely gadgets, so sometimes we think that, routines are not necessary because we can actually figure out things without having any systems in place. But routines are essential. And we need to pay attention to them, especially in difficult times, and for many reasons. So I'm gonna begin by sharing a study that was done a few years back. So this social scientist, what he did is he interviewed the mothers of 59 1-month-old babies. So 59, all of them are 1-month-old babies, and he interviewed the mothers extensively. And he asked, he basically checked into when do they feed them, when do they play with them, when do they change them. And over the next 13 years, the scientist continued interviewing the mothers, always checking into what's happening in their lives in terms of routines, and also checking into the mental status of the children. So they found that babies at the age of 1 month, and this is, imagine how early this is, Yani. So babies at the age of 1 month who had a more established routine, and taban, of course, we're talking about routines with 1 month kind of like loosely, because they are 1 month old. But still, they had more dependable structure and more dependable routines because of the mothers. they were less likely to be anxious at the age of 10. Routines are very grounding. They're very grounding for mothers, for adults, and they are very grounding for children. So I want you to imagine life from the point of view of the child. Child wakes up in the morning. Let's assume a 5-year-old wakes up in the morning. Family doesn't have a routine. So he wakes up. He doesn't know when he's going to have breakfast. He doesn't know if he is going out to play or if he is going to have an Arabic lesson or a Quran lesson. He doesn't know anything. He wakes up because every day is different. So this child wakes up already with uncertainty. And then he could start, for example, nagging. What's going to happen? When am I going to eat? Routines are very grounding. They answer many questions for everyone, whether adults or children, without the need for exerting mental energy or psychological energy into making last-minute decisions. So highly, highly encourage that anyone who does not have routines in their life, whether for themselves or for their children, to really start looking into that. Now, having said that, routines are going to be different depending on the age of the child. So, for example, I'm going to share with you a very basic routine chart that we created with my grandchildren. I have 2 of my grandchildren staying with us right now, and they're going to stay for 2 months. So even though they don't live with us, but still 2 months is not 2 days. So we sat down and we decided we are going to create a routine. So how did we do it? I had their mother write down everything that happens in the day for the children. So we wrote all of them without any specific order. Then we wrote the hours from the time they wake up until the time they sleep. And then we started plugging in. So we take one of these things that they happen and plug it in with a specific time of the day. One more thing that we did, and it's very important with young kids, is we make the routine visual. So what does this mean? Subhanallah, just happened by coincidence that my grandson, my eldest grandson, he had gotten a camera, a real camera, okay? Not of course, not something sophisticated, but for children, a camera as a gift. So we told him, we want you to go ahead and take pictures of the different items of the routine, and then we're going to paste it next to the times. And so he started doing that. We actually printed those pictures, and then we started putting it. So I'm going to show you. It's not going to show very clearly, but I'll show you. So I don't know if you can see. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so this is like the beginning here. We started with their wake-up time, which is, I think it was 7 a.m. So he decided to take a picture of his clock and then brushing his teeth and then what they have for breakfast. So all of this is happening, between the hour of 7 and 8. So basically we had this big poster board and we have the hours, and then we're plugging in different pictures for what is going on. So the kids, because they don't know how to read yet, they will know from the picture, oh, okay, this is what's happening at this time. And
good idea.
It's a very powerful idea for young children. It gives them
even any plain board in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be sophisticated. It just needs to be something that the kids can actually see and have access to. And it gives them a sense of power because they know what's going to happen. They know what to expect. It brings up a lot of safety because they know they don't have to worry, they don't have to think, and it also actually minimizes a lot of problems, a lot of tension in the family. Because what happens is, let's assume the child wants candy. Let's just assume, okay? It's 11 a.m. and he wants candy. And candy time in the family routine is for in our household, actually, it's after lunch. Okay. So the answer is very clear. Oh, okay, you want candy? Yeah, no problem. After lunch, you're going to have your candy. Go look at your routine chart and see when lunch is going to happen, you know, or see where we are. So it gives them even a visual of, okay, I'm at this step. I have maybe 2 more steps, and then I'm going to get to what I want. It's very powerful. So this is for young children. We do this visual routine.
To what age, yeah, Noha?
The routines, you mean?
Yes.
Or like me, I'm you know, in my late 50s. Okay, I have a routine. I have a very clear routine in my mind, and I have actually a calendar. I have a planner, if you will, not a calendar. I have a planner that I actually use. I use
talking
daily.
about children, like do you say by 10, if you have not done it yet, it's too late?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
So excellent question. So then this is how roles begin to change, right? So as the children grow older, then we start shifting more responsibilities to them, and our way of maybe influencing them changes. So for example, let's assume somebody, and I'm going to give the extreme example. So let's just assume somebody never did routines with their children, okay? And now they have a 17-year-old teenager. Okay, I'm just giving you the most extreme, like, you know, right?
The most difficult, challenging.
The most difficult, right? So now this teenager is not going to be willing to sit next to me, okay? So we can talk about routines. He will not. And of course, if I were to have a discussion and say, oh, Habibi, you know, let me help you with time management, he's going to go, duh, mom, I don't need any help with time management. But this is where I come in this is where I have influence over routine. I have influence over when dinner is served. I have influence over when do I turn off the Wi-Fi, because I really inviting parents to take charge of electronics. And we're going to talk about it as the last point for today. But I have the power to decide when the Wi-Fi or the internet is going to be turned off at home. So these are pieces of the routine for the 17-year-old. And so I will put these in place because they are under my control. And I just need to communicate these to my child and say, hey, Habibi, I know, you know, you have your own schedule, what have you. I just want you to know dinner is served at whatever, 6 or 7 p.m. every night. And I expect you to be with us. I expect you to eat with us. Sometimes teenagers, they say, oh, I'm never hungry at that time. And I would really invite parents. You say, it's not about the food. You don't want to eat, it's fine. But this is part of our family time. So I expect you to sit with us, even if you're not hungry. And I know in some families, teenagers are not going to listen. They're not going to collaborate because unfortunately the connection was not established early on. So, but just like we need to keep trying, never give up. So if we go back to your question about a 10-year-old, for example, a 10-year-old, we could, depending on him and how is he collaborative or is he rebellious? If he's a collaborative, we can sit with him and say, okay, let's sit down and write down your daily routine. So he will write it, and it will be written without pictures, of course, because he's 10. Pictures will be too childish for him. But at least writing it down is, and then having it in his room is a good visual for him to remember that there is structure, there is time structure that is important. So, yeah, I hope this was clear. About.
Yeah, this is very helpful. I think it's not only for the youth, but it's for everybody. And I always remind myself and everyone, this deen, Islam, is a deen of discipline and routine.
That's true.
And that's why we have we fast obligation from this day to this day, obligation. We need to pray 5 times, not 6, not 7, obligation from this time to this time. It's so interesting. In Ramadan, I always remind people how Allah teaches us discipline and obedience. It's Maghrib is 5:20, 5:19, I cannot eat. It's only 1 minute. What is the big deal? No. So I love this. Routine, it's discipline, it's less stress, is expectation.
Yes.
There's also the expectation in people. What do I expect at 9? When is my free time? When I know nobody is going to tell me to do anything. And when is they expect me to be doing this and that. I really, because I grew up this way, actually. There was
routine.
In the summer, absolutely, there was routine, there was discipline, there was breakfast, means breakfast is not up to me and up to us. And I really like it because it helped me when I grew up.
Yes.
It helped me to discipline myself, which is an important part of this religion already. So she says, one sister, 19 to 20 years routine.
19 to 20 years? No, at this time, you just focus on the pieces in your home. Like I told you, I'm in my late 50s. When I go visit my parents, may Allah bless them, may Allah bless them. There is routine in my parents' home. When I go to visit them, I follow their routine. I know exactly when breakfast is going to be. I know when lunch is going to be. I know when dinner is not. I know when they sleep. I know when they wake up. So it just makes my day easier because I plug in my other items or tasks between these big pieces. See, I call them the big pieces, like meals are big pieces. Prayer times are big pieces. In the US, for us, they change, right? But like, for example, my parents live in Saudi Arabia. I mean, the times don't change very much. But still, for people who pray regularly, unconsciously, their day revolves around prayer times. Okay, I'm going to do this before Dhuhr. I'm going to do this after Maghrib. I mean, it's really beautiful. Seriously, it's just so beautiful. But you also mentioned one thing that's very important, Dr. Haifaa, which is the free time. Unfortunately, I see some of our young parents nowadays, they think that they have to be engaged with their children all the time. And that's so exhausting and so draining. So if you start actually having, especially with kids who are, understand, you have the routine, and you have in the routine, it's very important that you have in the routine time where they are expected to play on their own. Very important.
Yeah, please, let them breathe.
Yes, let them breathe, and the parents breathe, because I see the parents really drained, and when I ask them what they're doing, they don't get a moment rest. Like, they feel guilty if they allow the children to play on their own. No, please don't feel guilty. Please. If your children are playing on their own, let them be happy. Just go do something else until they come and ask you for engagement or to connect with them. So, okay.
So number 6. No, number 7.
Oh, yeah. So 7 is how to deal with emotions.
Yeah.
This one is a big one. So when we think about emotions, you have different types of people and how they deal with emotions. So you have people who either suppress their emotions, they don't even acknowledge them. Okay, and this is actually prevalent in the Muslim community.
Yes.
Except for anger. Anger is somehow okay for certain people. Like, I'm just gonna say it, like, it's okay for men to be angry somehow. I don't know, in our community, we don't have a problem with, it's okay if they're men, it's okay for them to be angry. But in general, we do suppress emotions in our community, unfortunately. Now we come to for example, in the American community, they actually magnify emotions. And emotions are used to even manipulate others. So like, you would hear a lot of people saying, okay, oh, you hurt me when you said this, and this is not okay. So there is a lot of, like, you cannot hurt me, like, you cannot make my you cannot you cannot make me feel upset or sad or angry. But I want to emphasize it very clearly here. Each one of us is responsible for his or her own emotions, because our emotions are actually connected to how we think and what we believe about the world. So we need to, number one, accept responsibility for our emotions. Even if the hurt is coming on the hands of someone else, still, we are the one who are experiencing the emotions. And by accepting our responsibility, what does it mean? It means I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to figure out how am I going to deal with the situation. How do I need to really work with the situation? So not to be passive. And this is part of our Islamic tradition. I'm not just going to be standing passive waiting for people to fix things for me. That's not us. We have a very strong emphasis on individual responsibility in Islam. And so we need to really go back and take that back. So I have a 3-step strategy for dealing with emotions. Number one is identifying what are the emotions that I am experiencing. And we have 4, to simplify things, we have 4 major emotional categories: glad, sad, mad, and scared. Those are the 4 major ones. So if you even just ask yourself, am I glad? Am I mad? Am I sad? Am I scared? And identify where you are in these 4, then you are really doing a very good step. You're taking a very good step. So the first one...
There's no 5th, I feel good?
So that would be under glad. No. It is. It's under glad. It's one of the shades of glad. Because, because each one of these actually have different shades. Like, in the English language, there are 255 words that describe emotions.
Oh.
Yes. So we could roughly, group them under the major headings. But, yeah. So this is the first step, is identify emotions. What am I experiencing? Second step is expressing. So what we mean by expressing here is connecting the emotion to the event. So for example, let's say, okay, so
I got what I want.
I got what I wanted. I'm happy. Yeah. I got what I wanted. Okay. Yes. So this is a feeling, and then connecting it with, what is the event, what's happening.
Okay.
So that's the expression. Okay. And it's very important. I'll share. And the reason why it's very important, because many times we talk about emotions or express them the wrong way, where we put the responsibility on other people, or we actually blame other people. And I'm going to share some of the statements that sometimes parents use with their children regarding emotions. The third step in emotions is containing them. Containing them doesn't mean I suppressed it. No, because in the first step, I identified it. And when I identify an emotion, I actually accept it. I say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. And then I'm connecting it to the event. And the third one is, okay, so now how do I take care of myself, or how do I take care of the situation? So applying this to children, because this whole thing is about children. Let's assume you have a child, and this happened today, actually. I bought gifts for my grandchildren. I bought them a few toys. And before the toys came, I told them, we're not going to open all of them at once. See, this is a life message. I'm sending the message that not everything that you want, you're going to get in the same moment, that you need to wait. So I said, we're going to buy them. They're going to come. We're going to open one every day. So teaching the delayed gratification. This is a life message. Okay, important for Muslims, because the akhirah is all about delayed gratification. So yeah, exactly. So then, so my grandson today, he opened one, and then he's like, Teta, please, can I open the second one? I promise you, I'm not gonna ask again or whatever. So what am I noticing in him? What's the emotion in him? Is he's excited, he's also frustrated, he's a little bit anxious. So expressing this would be, okay, Habibi, you are really excited about all the toys that you have and we're not opening today. So this is connecting the emotion with the event. Okay. And then the containing is different depending on the situation. So with him specifically, I had to say, no, I already explained to you that, we're not going to open all of the toys together. What would you like to do right now? What would help you right now? So this is like directing his attention to do something about his frustration or excitement, something that is useful. Because sometimes people do things with their emotions that are not useful. And so we want to train children from an early age how to contain their emotions in a healthy and useful and socially acceptable way.
So Noha, if let's assume this is a 5-year-old and you went through this strategy and he starts crying and then gave you the fit, which is sometimes happens.
Yes, absolutely. We actually, this happened also with my eldest son the other day. He had a fit for 45 minutes.
And what did you do?
So I wasn't there, but his mother, Allah yatiha al-afiyah, she was with him and they were in the park. So of all places, it wasn't even home. So it was a public place.
Right.
Very hard. So, but mashallah, I really appreciate that his mother has learned early on that she is not going to feel responsible for like she has to fix the situation. That she learned early on that it's okay for him to cry. It's okay for him to have a fit. Okay. It doesn't need to end very quickly. What needs to happen is to give him support. So she said, okay, come sit with me, let me give you a hug. And she did the identifying and the expressing of emotion. Okay, you're very upset because this happened. And then, he's not, calming down. He didn't calm down. And she said, okay, we need to start heading home. And so she carried him, and then and his brother was, walking along. So it was hard. So in a fit like this, you do not need to solve the problem for the child. And in that situation, the child has flipped their lid. Okay, they're not rational. They're emotional. And when they are emotional, you cannot make sense to them. So what they need from you in that moment is just emotions without giving in. This is so important. So I love you. I love you, but I'm not going to give you what you're crying about. Because if I even, do it 1 or 2 times, the child is going to learn that all I have to do is just cry. I'm going to get what I want in the end. Not the life message we want to send to the children.
So is it right if I say this statement, don't give in to your child because of showing improper emotion?
100%. But you can give them love. Okay, so this doesn't mean that giving it doesn't mean I'm gonna, abandon them or say, oh, you're such a bad boy, or no, we're not gonna do any of this. By us saying, okay, you're angry, you're upset because this is what you wanted and it's not happening, we are emphasizing accepting his emotions. And because this, unfortunately, and especially in our, I shouldn't be saying especially in the Muslim community, but in many communities, this idea of accepting emotions is not there. There is a lot of, like, for example, some of the statements that you hear some parents saying to their children, oh, be a big boy and a big girl. Don't be a baby. Don't cry. Okay. And we hear this a lot being said to boys. To boys, yes. Okay, you're gonna be a man. Don't cry. How I mean, and we know about the Prophet ﷺ, how he cried when when his son Ibrahim died. Like, so to be careful. I mean, about sending these messages early on to the children. Another one that sometimes parents say to the children, you should not be feeling this way. Feelings are feelings. Okay, if we are experiencing a feeling, there is no should about it. Okay, what is important is how are we going to behave or how are we going to react. But the feelings are not something that is not something that you need to feel bad about or feel that you shouldn't feel this way. No, feelings are information. If you are feeling something, your psyche is trying to tell you a message about the situation. So it actually behooves any one of us to really try and understand what's the message. What are we trying to be told? And then another one that really bothers me also from parents to children is when parents tell the children, look how you made me angry. And then you have children who get stuck into that they are responsible for the emotions of their children, of their parents, and they get into a cycle of guilt and shame and a lot of self-loathing. And so extremely important to really, again, like I said in the beginning, for all of us to own responsibility for our emotions. So I can say something like, okay, I am angry because you actually didn't listen to me. But I'm not saying you made me angry. Okay, for some people, they may think it's the same, but it's not the same. Okay, because one is focusing on a behavior, the other one, the child receives it as I am a bad person. And it's about me. I have some really horrible traits within me. And so we want to start distinguishing between a being, a label of the person, and behaviors. It's okay to talk about the inappropriate behaviors, no problem, as long as we do not attach it to a label, to a label about the child that becomes permanent, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the child starts believing that I am this bad person, and then also one that I really also, it bothers me a lot also when parents tell children, if you don't do this, Allah will be angry with you. And I'm not talking about the sins, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that the parents want to happen. And they just immediately have like a direct, like they tell Allah when to be angry, when to be angry with the children. So another, the scars that happen from this are really deep, and many of times they actually sometimes lead to the kids being alienated from Islam and alienated from Allah. So we need to be very careful about the messages we are sending to the children about Allah specifically, because it breaks my heart, really breaks my heart, when I see the children growing into young adults who do not have a good relationship with Allah because of some childhood, whatever, wounds or traumas or what. Yeah.
Okay.
And the last thing I'm going to say about emotions, there's actually a whole video on YouTube about this emotion business. And it's called, I have it in Arabic and I have it in English. And it's called, in English, it's called The Story Behind Our Emotions. And the Arabic one, it's a series of 5 small videos called قصة المشاعر. So a very important topic.
Yeah. So this is a video by whom?
By me.
Oh, already. I'm glad I asked. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, number 8. Number 8 is connecting, encouraging mind and body activities. I would like to emphasize the idea that there is a very strong connection between the mind and the body. And within the Western understanding of knowledge and so on, their appreciation for mind, which we translate, I translate it into Arabic, into aql, their understanding of mind has has come a long way, because for a while there was no appreciation of the idea of mind. There was only brain, which is basically an organ, a physical organ, and the body. But to understand that there is something to the human, to us humans, beyond what is palpable, beyond what is tangible. And we believe that in Islam. We talk about the nafs and we talk about the aql. And so these domains that are not tangible and palpable except through the psyche and the nafs have only recently in the West have gotten some attention and significance. So I want to emphasize, in our tradition we do believe in the connection, but I want to make it very clear that we do believe that there are domains to us. There is the body, there is the soul, there is the nafs, there is the mind, and we as Muslims believe of the interconnection of all of them, and one of them impacts the other. So for here, I just want to emphasize the connection between the mind, which is not the brain, it's different, between the mind and the body. So the mind is our thinking, our beliefs, okay? And those, they actually influence the brain, the organ. And then the organ of the brain actually is connected to the rest of the body. And that's how it's all interrelated. So encouraging mind and body activities is very important, because when there is a disconnect, so how does it happen? For example, I get clients who are either anxious or they are very depressed. So depressed and anxious people are in their mind all the time. Okay, they're looping, thinking, looping, thinking, looping, thinking, looping, thinking, looping, thinking, looping. And that actually paralyzes the rest of the body. Sure. And you see it in so many different symptoms. So the depressed person could be, for example, not moving, staying in bed, they're overeating or undereating. The anxious person, they talk to us about having panic attacks, and they give us, very strong descriptions of, of the symptoms of the body, of the heart, of the what do you call them, the lungs, and the digestive system. So understanding that all of this is connected, we want to start training our children in activities that connect the mind and the body. And so what are these activities? Yes. SubhanAllah, prayer is one of them. SubhanAllah. Because what's happening in prayer, you're reciting, you're reciting all the, the surahs and the adhkar, and also you are matching it with the body movement. So you're aligning all of this together. Okay. Wudu, believe it or not, wudu is also a very powerful mind and body activity. SubhanAllah, the other day I was reading about research that talks about when you wash your feet, how it's actually very calming. And I'm like, SubhanAllah, like this is what we do in wudu. We wash our feet. And I'm really inviting everybody to really notice how is your state before you go and make wudu and after you make wudu. And you will really begin to notice that there is actually a difference. I'm talking about your inner state. And of course, you all know about how the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, when we're angry, he gave us a prescription to on what to do when we're angry. He said, make wudu, go make wudu. He said also, change position. Because changing position, what does it entail? Changing position entails that you actually have to think. You have to think about this intention of standing up or laying down, whatever you're going to do, and also engaging your body at the same time. it's so powerful. There's so many things, beautiful things in our tradition that helps, that, if we only applied these things in our tradition, even without understanding the scientific significance of them, we will be in a much better place. But to give
Do you have
other
any
examples,
any other activity other
yeah,
than salah, wudu, daily activity that you recommend?
walking. So exercise in
The
all its
sport.
forms is very important. But I want to emphasize the idea of walking only because people sometimes, they look with disdain on walking, like walking is not an activity. Walking is such an important activity, and especially if you are walking in a natural setting, like in a forest or next to a lake, or next to my house we have a nice trail. It's not like very foresty, but it's still a trail. So walking in nature is a beautiful mind body connecting activity.
And you
Another
know
thing.
what's interesting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how many times in the Quran says, أَوْلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا.
Yeah.
Don't they walk? If you translate literal word to word, haven't they walked and they see?
Yeah.
And it's actually using your mind. You're reflecting on the creation of Allah. And if I take the child, I always, when people ask me, you know way better than me in this field, I was like, when you take your children to the zoo,
Yeah.
teach them to see and reflect and learn. It's not only, oh, it's so beautiful.
Yes.
But it's like, look at this creation of Allah. Look at this beauty. Who taught him or her? And subhanAllah, I love this. It's an amazing activities, daily routine. We take our children for all this, take them to the park, but connect them with using their brain and connect them with Allah in the positive way.
100%.
You're not going to go to Jahannam. That's what they hear from us.
Yeah.
Rather than look at the beauty he gave us, subhanAllah.
And they are very curious themselves, children, and they're actually very observant. So if you just open the space for them to actually go out in nature, they pick up so many things, and it becomes like, second nature to them. You don't need to even, teach them a science lesson because they're picking it up, they're observing it. Like the change of seasons, for example, like, they notice how, things are, it's just, like the bees, like my grandchildren, the bee came, and the ants, and I'm like, it's lovely.
Yes.
So other
number 9, I'm sorry, because we have only 10 minutes. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I know time. So I'll just mention also, in addition to mind and body activity, just quickly, all the hobbies. Like coloring, drawing, reading, cooking, organizing. All of these are mind-body connecting activities. Okay, when I become agitated myself, I go and I do something. I organize, or I do cooking, or I bake, and then I feel much more calmer. So number 9 is basically embracing mistakes and failures. Now, having said that, people immediately go, what? Yes. Embracing mistakes and failures? What do you mean by that? So this doesn't mean we are saying giving people a green light to repeat mistakes and failures. No. It's the opposite completely. What we're talking about here is basically teaching children how to learn from their mistakes. So to give a very quick example, I take my grandchildren to the park every day. So yesterday, my eldest grandson, he wanted to go and he wanted to take his Lego airplane with him. And I said, hey, Habibi, yeah, no problem. You can take it, but you are going to be responsible for it. So he said yes. So we go to the park, he puts it on the bench and we leave and he forgets it, but he remembers halfway to our house. He's like, oh, Teta, I forgot my airplane. I said, okay, no problem. We're going to go back and get it. So we get it. As we're walking home, what does he tell me? He says, Teta, why did you forget my airplane? So you see the question, he's putting the blame on me, right? Okay. So now this is my way of teaching him. So I say, okay, so whose plane is this? Who does it belong to? He said, me. I said, okay, so who's responsible for it? He said, me. I said, excellent. And then I say, okay, so what are you going to do differently next time so you don't forget it? And this is what I mean by embracing mistakes and failures, asking the children the question, what did we learn? And what are we going to do differently next time? And so he says at this point, he's like, I don't know. I said, okay, you know what? It's very simple. Next time we go to the park, you put it in the wagon, because we usually take a wagon with us. So today, when we went, he had a toy with him. Once we got to the park, he took the toy, put it in the wagon, and he told me, I am putting it in the wagon so I don't forget it.
MashaAllah.
But see, if it just like, you connect things for children and they're really ready to learn. It's just about how are we connecting things. So I'm not, for example, yesterday I didn't tell him, oh, how stupid of you. How could you forget your airplane? You are not responsible. When are you going to be responsible? I mean, that kind of reaction is just going to emphasize for him that he's a bad person.
The blame, avoid the blame.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, it's not only blame, it's kind of also putting him down. But when I'm saying, okay, this happened, what did we learn? And how are we going to do it differently? This is so key. It's so key. So the last one I wanted to mention today is really minimizing screen time. So I am not, like, alhamdulillah, mashallah, technology is amazing. We are able to do so many wonderful things we were not able to do before. Like, we're having this session today. Like 10 years ago, we would not have been able to do this in 2 different locations, right? And we're broadcasting to the world. So it's amazing. Technology is amazing. But it's about how we use it, how much we use it. And so children need to learn from an early age that, yes, we love technology, but we have to use it within limits. So there are moral limits, there are ethical limits, and there are also personal limits in terms of like how much does it invade into our daily life. And I'm going to say it here, I always say it, parents are letting go of their control over screen time. They are choosing to let go. And they tell me all sorts of things. They tell me, oh, but they, then I never, they nag me. And, I can't handle, their nagging. Or, I see them so upset and so angry and I feel sorry for them. They give me all sorts of, excuses for why they are not taking control of the limits. I'm not talking about don't allow them to use technology. Allow them to use technology. And I want you to teach them the proper way of using technology. I want you to allow them to use social media, but they need to learn from you how to use social media properly in a good way, because who's going to teach them? They're going to learn from their friends. I mean, you need, again, you're the first and the most important influencer. And if the connection between parents and children is there, they will actually listen to you. So I'm not saying allow them to use technology and don't and make it open all the time and you're not watching. For example, one of the limits I invite parents to do is the use of technology needs to be in an open space. It cannot be behind closed doors, especially for teens. But there are many parents who, for them, this is already too late because they've already established, that the teen is using his electronics behind closed doors. The reason why I'm really very vocal about these issues is because of the addiction. So whether addiction to porn or whether addiction to even emotional relationships, it's heartbreaking. So I know we are not going to be able to prevent completely or shield our children completely from accessing these kind of like inappropriate sites or whatever. But at least if we can prevent them from getting to the addiction phase, then we've actually done a beautiful, beautiful job. Okay, and not every child is going to be prone to addiction. Let me be very clear on that, because some children, it's not going to be an issue for them, because they're busy with other things.
So if I ask you this, what age you recommend? In these days, it's getting harder and harder, and especially with the COVID and with the visual or virtual schooling. What is the appropriate age, from your experience, to start giving a child quote unquote phone?
Oh,
That's
a very
one.
yes,
The biggest one. I've seen 8 argue.
Yeah.
8 argue that I need a phone.
I know.
And I was like, okay, convince me. Why do you need a phone?
Yeah.
So what
I
do
know.
you do? I mean, I'm sure our viewers all go through this.
Yes, I am actually kind of like on the strict side with this, but not many people like my views on these things, which is fine. But I'm, I really, yes, I like the idea of why are we introducing the smartphone to the child. If I'm dropping off the child, I'm picking up the child, they don't need the phone per se, kind of like to really call me, but parents are somewhat overprotective nowadays. They believe that they need to make sure that the children are okay all the time. Okay. And so the smartphone gives them a false sense of security in terms of like, yeah, I know what's going on and I know where they are. And until the kids get to be teens. And then when they're teens, they turn off the phone and the parents don't know what's going on. But anyway, I think it's a very personal choice for the family. I know myself, when my kids were little, I was one of the late adopters in my family where kids got cell phones in my family. But that's me, and I know it's not easy for all families to do that. But at least if you're gonna get a smartphone, then please put limits on the internet, easy internet access. Like don't have the smartphone connected to the internet 24/7. I know in the US specifically, when you buy the smartphone, you have to get the package with the data. I know that, but you can call the phone company and ask them to disconnect the data from that phone. So look into all the options that you can have under your control to really prevent the 24/7 access to the internet. And in your home, please control the Wi-Fi, please. Okay, have a certain time where the Wi-Fi is going to be turned off, so you can go to sleep knowing that your children are not going to be accessing internet when you are sleeping. Another thing that we invite parents to do is when they go to sleep, when the parents go to sleep, all electronics go in their room, so they don't stay outside where kids can actually access them, where the parents are sleeping. Again, this is because children are going to be enticed. They would love to be on the internet all the time. So to minimize your battles over this issue, just establish these boundaries in place, follow through with them, and allow your children to use, the internet and electronics.
Till what age, honestly, you can reinforce this?
I see it in terms of like it's a very artificial age, but again, it depends on how connected the family is, because the thing is, when teens recognize their power, and they recognize, honestly, there are teens who are very smart and very intelligent, so they will actually go and do things behind their parents' back, no matter what the parents are doing, right? But if there is connection in the family, I really strongly believe in that. If there is connection in between the parents and the children, and this was established early on, these conversations become easier when we get to that time. But anyway, coming back to your question, I think I just have an artificial age, which is 18, because after 18, legally, the child is an adult. The child now can rent an apartment. They can work. They have a lot of power after the age of 18. Under the age of 18, they are still under the supervision or the influence of the parents. So it's again, it's a very artificial limit that I put in place. But again, I'm going to emphasize for those parents who are listening and their children are already using electronics without limits. Okay, it is what it is. Just deal, try to contain whatever damage is there. Because sometimes it's going to be very hard for them to come and actually establish the limits now when it wasn't established before.
Do you think, and I'm asking on a half of many parents, do you think there's a point when you say it's too late? There's nothing else you can do?
No, I really don't believe in that, because even when you believe it's already too late, you can work on the relationship. You can work on the relationship, acknowledging what power you have lost, but work on your connection with your child, because ultimately this is what is going to maintain your influence on your children, is your connection, the connection.
We didn't have many questions today. I think the audience is either overwhelmed or they were off, or because it was the minimum. I know I asked questions, but I don't see. Jazakallah khair is all very nice. Jazakallah khair. But I don't see. I'm scrolling through. If anybody has a question, we still have maybe a couple of minutes. This is a good comment, but it's also bring a good point. It says older kids don't like hearing, "What did we learn?" Your advice on this. They think it is blaming them. Like, the example you gave about your grandson when he forgot.
Yeah.
So she says, Sister Sabiha says, older kids don't like hearing, "What did we learn?"
Yeah.
So how do we tackle this?
See, when I hear that, I'm thinking that maybe we need to focus on the relationship here. We need to focus on the connection again, because I'm just thinking and reflecting. Okay, why is the child resisting? Why? What did we learn? I don't know. Okay, there is something going on there. So I'm just like, okay, so maybe we need to back off. Okay, and not say what did we learn from this, and say something like, I love you. I'm here for you. If you ever need me, you just know how to find me. Maybe the child is saying that, Mom or Dad, you nag too much, you lecture too much, and I need you to let me be. I mean, this is me as a therapist reading into it, and maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay, so one more question, if you don't mind. We're a little bit over time, but that's okay. Jazakallah khair. How can we manage the situations when the values with which we want to raise our children contradict with other family members, like grandparents? This is very common scenario.
Yes. I personally always advocate for honesty and transparency. So I would make it I would just say it as it is. Okay, let's just assume, I'm just going to give an example. Let's just assume grandparents, for example, don't pray. Let's just assume. Okay, and we pray, right? So and so we go visit the grandparents, and they start asking, oh, we didn't see grandpa praying, whatever. Yeah, so we just say it, statement of facts, guys, without disrespect. It's very important how you say it. So, okay, Habibi, unfortunately, grandpa doesn't pray. We pray, and we're going to pray for him that, inshallah, that he will start praying. Okay. And so depending on the situation, and then
for example, the ones I hear, so you have certain rules in your home, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. For example, they are young, you don't give them candy unless maybe once a day. Yeah. Then the grandparents comes in out of love and affection, and they spoil them or leave them, or you are being too hard on them.
Yeah.
And this can happen when they go and visit their grandparents. And this is tricky, especially if they are not your parents, if they are in-laws, which is even more tricky. So how do you handle that?
Very good question, and it comes up a lot. Okay, and it's also going to vary from one family to another. Okay, so I'm just going to mention different points. First of all, the spouses need to be on the same page. Okay, like the husband and wife, in terms of how are they going to handle the situation. That's one. Number two, the person who is the son or the daughter of the parents is the one who needs to explain to his or her parents about our rules. We need to have this conversation. And yes, we're going to hear from them, oh, you're too hard, you're too strict. And we say, yes, mama, yes, baba, I know this is how you see it, but please respect that this is what I want to do with my children. So that's two. Three, if I am not there, like the grandparents are there and I am not there, I'm not going to make an issue about what's going on there. If I have a problem with that, then I'm not going to leave my children with them without me being there. You know, we need to take responsibility. And then with some families, I know some couples who, because the parents are rigid and they have a hard time understanding where the parents are coming from. I'm talking grandparents are rigid and they want only their way, and so the parents have chosen to minimize, unfortunately, their interactions with the grandparents because of the differences in values. Because we need to keep in mind, we need to recognize how much influence do we have, how much control do we have, and then decide what is more important here. Is having control over this particular issue, because it could be different for different family, or maintaining the relationship with the grandparents. And I'm not talking about cutting off grandparents. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about limiting, maybe just to minimize the situations that the parents don't like.
Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you. Some are asking, so if you want to see this again, for those of you who joined late, I just put it on the screen also. Recordings on YouTube, so you can visit Jannah Institute's YouTube channel, and you can listen to part 1, which is 2 weeks ago, and then today. Jazakallah khair ya Noha. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for everything you do, Ya Rabbi Ameen, for the time you gave us and for all the efforts. Just a final question: if somebody needs to get in touch with you, how do they have a case or something? How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so through my website. So my website is Sakina, SAKINA, sakinacounseling.com. And so there is a contact form there that they can contact me on sakinacounseling.com. Yeah, I think that would be maybe the easiest way for people to find me.
Ya Rabbi Ameen. And I will end up by the first point Sister Noha shared with us is a dua. اللهم هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. جزاك الله خير. May Allah reward you, all of you. Hopefully we'll see you again. It's not the last time, inshallah.
Inshallah.
بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه تسليما كثيرا.
آمين.